It's 7 o'clock and time now to get the latest news from Tim Gudgeon.
The High Court on Teesside has made 17 children who had been diagnosed as having been abused sexually wards of court, but they're to stay in local authority care until a further hearing next week. Earlier, Middlesbrough magistrates ordered that a 5-year-old girl who had been similarly diagnosed should be returned to her parents. The government has set out its new programme of legislation in the Queen's speech at the state opening of Parliament. Among the bills will be one to introduce a national curriculum for schools and another to reform housing. In the Commons, the Labour leader Mr Kinnock said it had been re-emphasised that under the Conservatives, money was the key to happiness.
The maxim of modern conservatism is if you can't pay, stay away. If you can't afford the fee, you can't be really free. That system, Mr Speaker, was buried by history and need and the decent consensus of all parties decades ago. It will be buried again.
Mrs Thatcher answered the point directly.
Those class shibboleths have no relevance at all in our modern society. People know full well they have a higher standard of living than they've ever had before, that comes from cooperation between a government which, together with partnership of the people, has brought about economic strength and standards of healthcare and social security we have never had before.
Nominations open today for Labour's shadow cabinet. The shadow Foreign Secretary, Mr Dennis Healey, has not put his name forward, but he's made it clear that he'll continue to work for the Labour Party. Mr John Fleming, the man deported from the United States to face charges in connection with the £26 million Brinksmat bullion robbery, has been freed. Magistrates in London decided there wasn't enough evidence against him. The weather: northern Scotland will have showers and clear periods. Elsewhere, heavier rain will persist, gradually clearing from the north and west. We'll take another look at the news at 8.
The Cajun reeling at 7:30, normally the time we go over to the cricket scoreboard. But the bad weather today has meant there's been no play in either of the two cricket matches. Both try again tomorrow in the NatWest first round match at Jesmond. Northumberland still need another 208 in 40 overs to beat Essex. In the tour match at the Parks, Pakistan resumed their first innings at 48 for 1 in reply to the combined universities 201 all out. Now, both my producer and I think that Johnny Cash's first album for Mercury is his best in a long time, and I'm pleased to say it's now released here. This is The Ballad of Barbara.
And now Radio 1 presents Classic Albums, the series which reassesses some of the most popular albums of the rock era.
Thanks very much indeed, Wally. And our country fair continues after the news with Hit Boys, in which this week Ricky Skaggs examines the relationship between country music and gospel music, regarded by many as the single most important element in the makeup of country. That's right after the news.
Radio 2.
But now it's 9 o'clock, and here with the latest is Tim. Well, sorry to interrupt your concert enjoyment, but we have an urgent message for drivers using the A46 in Nottinghamshire and for those on the M5 near Worcester. Because of an overturned tanker, the A46 is blocked near East Bridgeford on the Newark-on-Trent road. Diversions are being set up, but these will mean very long delays for the next few hours. That's the A46 near East Bridgeford. Some good news, though, for drivers on the M5. The road there is open following the earlier accident south of Worcester. That's between junctions 7 and 8. And traffic flow will soon be back to normal. And now we're back to the music.
Radio 2.
Time now, 8 o'clock in the newsroom, Tim Gudgeon.
The government has outlined its programme for the coming Parliament, which includes proposals for a new curriculum in schools, housing reform and renewal of inner cities. For Labour, Mr Neil Kinnock said it showed that under the Conservatives, money was the key to happiness. But Mrs Thatcher said that the spreading ownership of shares and housing was one of the great achievements of the past 8 years. 9 South African miners are reported to have been killed in a rockfall at a gold mine near Johannesburg. The owners, Anglo-American, said 25 other workers had been injured. The accident happened more than 2 miles underground. The Soviet leader, Mr. Gorbachev, has called for drastic changes in the running of his country's economy. He was speaking during the opening session of the Communist Party's Central Committee in Moscow. From there, Martin Sixsmith reports.
There was, said Mr. Gorbachev, a need for revolutionary transformations to get the economy out of what he termed a pre-crisis situation. The energy of the working people was being frustrated by conservatism, inertia and selfish interest, and he singled out for particular criticism the country's excessively centralized command system of management, a reference to the central planning authorities and ministries which have traditionally controlled all economic activity in the USSR. Instead, said Mr. Gorbachev, individual enterprises should be given much greater independence, but with an obligation to remain viable and to give the consumer what he wants.
Police in Portsmouth say a 15-year-old boy is helping them with their inquiries into the alleged rape 8 days ago of a 5-year-old girl. The girl was attacked during her lunch break from school. It's been alleged that she had been lured away from the playground. The High Court in Teesside has ordered that 17 children who are alleged to have been the victims of sexual abuse should be made wards of court. They'll stay in local authority care for the meantime. There's to be a further hearing next week. We'll have more news at 9 o'clock.
All over the country, always here with you, Radio 2.
Michael Holiday, I'll always be in love with you. 10:23 now. Brian Measure, right from Pettswood in Kent. That's a greeting for his mum, Mrs. Measure, sort of measure for measure greeting here. Mrs. Wynne Measure lives in Corkscrew Hill, West Wickham in Kent. It's her birthday today. Hope you enjoyed last Sunday's. What happened last Sunday? Right under a plain cover, please. The Band of Her Majesty's Royal Marines, Commander-in-Chief Naval Home Command, conducted by Captain Peter Hemming and the John McCarthy Singers. All for your pleasure as we celebrate the Radio 2 Festival of Music.
Pete Setterer's song, Hard to Say I'm Sorry, from Chicago. And the studio producer this evening has been Neil George. Final quote from Sir Herbert Beerbohm Tree on being given one of those new gramophones to try. He said, "Sir, I have tested your machine. It adds new terror to life. It makes death a long-felt want." Good night.